Hey, good morning, everybody, and happy Sunday to you. Coming at you with this week's stocks to watch and market overview. Got to tell you, I must really like you guys because this is the second time I'm doing this video. Tried to upload the last video and my computer completely froze, so everything got wiped out and have to do it all over again. So I don't know. Maybe the big guy upstairs doesn't want me sharing videos with everyone because this video was for everyone this week instead of just the pro members. I don't know. Maybe he's trying to tell me something. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started. So a lot to talk about. We've got a big week ahead of us. Let me pull up. Let me pull up the economic calendar. So uh, we have the Fed FOMC announcement on Wednesday. If he comes in too hawkish, and that could impact the markets. We've got a lot of economic data, durable goods, Case-Shiller home prices, consumer confidence, core capital good orders, GDP, personal income, consumer spending, Chicago PMI, consumer sentiment. We've got a lot of economic data that could impact the markets. We've got the coronavirus, which, if this really starts to heat up, you have to think about the potential economic impact of that, right? Travel, um, energy, consumer discretionary, um, a lot of different industries could be impacted if this thing really, you know, uh, continues to get worse, right? And we learn more about it, and people start to freak out. Uh, that could be weigh on the markets. So we and then the big thing that I think really will be the primary focus this week is going to be earnings. You know, earnings guidance, and in my opinion, we've had a lot of stocks that have probably gotten ahead of themselves. Even if we get strong earnings and we get a strong guide, those things could be priced in to some of the stock prices. And I'm just looking at companies like Lockheed Martin, which has had an amazing run, Apple, Tesla, Facebook, Microsoft, you know, um, AMD, Amazon. We've just had some stocks that have had some amazing moves in a pretty short period of time, and that may be priced in. We saw some weakness last week, and could that continue as we head into February, close out January? February, for the last 50 years, has been a fairly flat month. It's one of the 3 months, September, October, February, um, where just not really a great month. It's a short month and tends to be a flat month. So, could we see some weakness as we head into February? I think that's very possible. Do I think it would be, it's the end of the bull market and the beginning of a bear market? I don't think so, unless this virus really turns out to be a black swan event. I think what could happen is it could present a buy the dip opportunity, but we'll see how it plays out. I mean, right now this market has been extremely impressive. Anything you've thrown at it has not been able to deter the bulls, but there's a lot of complacency out there, and hopefully over the last several weeks you've been selling into strength, building some cash. Uh, for the opportunity to maybe be able to dip into some things on any kind of a pullback. How significant of a pullback can we get? I don't know. I mean, I really don't. But we've got some big names in a broad array of sectors that are represented this week with earnings, right? So we've got big oil and gas. We've got Caterpillar. We've got Honeywell, Visa, right? UPS, Verizon. I mean, we've got some really big names reporting. McDonald's, AT&T, GE, Boeing, 3M. A couple of names on here that are on my list this week as potential trade opportunities or long-term investments. But definitely, we're going to get a good snapshot of um, you know earnings and what the guide is. And I'll tell you what, if I was CEO with this coronavirus, I would probably be somewhat conservative, right? Not knowing how things may be impacted. So I think it's a good time to be cautious. I think there's going to be some movers. Um, Definitely worth. I think it's going to be a very interesting week ahead. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right, let's take a look at the overall sectors real quick. I don't want to. I probably in the first video went on a little too long about the sectors, but gold, I think, is something you want to keep an eye on. It is an area of potential safety. The chart looks good, right? Nice little flag pattern. JNUG Nugget, if you don't have an individual name miner that you would like to play, JNUG and Nugget could present opportunities. But gold looks like it's breaking out, and I think that is a sector you want to keep an eye on. IBB, I find it interesting that with this coronavirus, we're getting a pullback, right? We broke below the 50-day moving average. We're making a lower high and now a lower low in the short term here. Broke below the 50-day. Maybe we're looking to come back and test the 200-day in this 110 area as potential support. There are some individual biotech names, if they get some kind of news about, grant for coming out with a vaccine for the coronavirus or a test to detect the coronavirus. You're getting these stocks that are getting these big pops. Make sure before you go jumping into these things and holding them overnight that you take a look at their cash burn. Take a look at how much cash they have in the bank, right? And what if they have any approved drugs, if the drugs that they are trying to get approved, what phase they're in. Are they 1, 2, or 3? I mean, don't just jump blindly into these stocks that are moving off of headlines for the coronavirus, okay? If they are burning through a lot of cash and they don't have any cash in the bank, any kind of lift in the stock price is going to probably lead to dilution. They're probably going to raise capital. So be very cognizant of that with any of these small cap biotech names that come out with coronavirus headlines, okay? Be very, very careful. Don't chase. Do a little work before you go jumping in to any of those things. All right, IWM, small caps pulling back a little bit. Coming to an area of potential support. If we break below the 50-day moving average, then I think there's a possibility we come down and test this 155 area where there's some potential price support and the 200-day moving average. IYT Transportation pulled back to the 50-day, bounced a little bit, but it has this trend line resistance overhead, and transportation could certainly be impacted if this coronavirus continues to spread, right? So airlines, think about that, could be impacted. So JNUG Nugget, like I said, constructive patterns here. If you don't have an individual name in the mining space, those could be some trading opportunities there. QQQ's big, a lot of big cap names, Microsoft, Facebook, Apple reporting this week, pulled back a little bit. Would not be shocked if we were to pull back and test the 50-day moving average as potential support in the top of this trend line. So, big week for tech. SMH, same thing, right? We've had a nice little run. Would not, breaking out of the little flag pattern here, pull back. Wouldn't be shocked if we were to pull back and test the 50-day as support. S&P 500 consolidating, pull back a little bit on Friday. Do we pull back here and test this area, the 50-day, see if that acts as support? Maybe we come all the way back down and test this potential price support area. But, we've had a huge run in a very short period of time, so a pullback to me would not be a big shocker. TVIX, UVXY, Short-term trading opportunities. If some real fear starts to come into the market, if we get some kind of, you know, significant pullback, there could be some short-term trading opportunities within TVIX, UVXY, USO getting crushed. The coronavirus probably not helping. You think about people not going out, staying in, right? That could impact. That doesn't help oil, right? We didn't. The geopolitical concerns seem to have dissipated quite a bit, right? And that hit oil. And then if you start, you know, if demand if is decreasing because people aren't driving, aren't flying, we could see inventory builds, and that of course would be negative for oil. So we'll see how it plays out, but it has been a very tough sector to try and find the bottom in. I will say that there are some energy names that have, you know, broken some pretty significant support that could be looking at snapback plays in the near term, just for short-term trading opportunities. But trying to invest in the bot and trying to find the bottom in energy has been a very tough thing to try and do. Aerospace defense. Lockheed Martin reports this week. Aerospace and defense has been one of the stronger sectors out there, but I think they've gotten ahead of themselves. So I would not be shocked if we were to see a pullback. A pullback to the 50-day would be healthy, or even pull back and test this area where we broke out from. That could be an interesting area of potential support. But Maxer, one of my favorite names in that space, has had pulled back a couple of days last week. I would love to see that thing get down to $16, maybe even back down to 10. Not saying that it's going there, but I would love to have it pull back like that and provide an opportunity to dip, because I think Maxer is one of my favorite names within the space. Aerospace defense, I think, is still going to be a strong sector. I just think maybe we get some kind of a pause or pullback. Home builders breaking out of a nice little pattern here, pulling back. Wouldn't be shocked if we were to pull back and retest that breakout area, right? I think we have a couple home builders reporting this week. DR Horton is one. So we'll see what happens with the home builders. Building materials, on the other hand, pulling back a little bit. Closed below the 50-day moving average. We could be looking at a pullback down to the 200-day, but building materials actually looking kind of weak. It kind of has a head and shoulders pattern on the daily, so that's a little concerning for the building materials. XLE, like I said, tough trade. Was flagging nicely above the 200-day. And now we're back below the 50 and the 200, testing this trend line as potential support. If that doesn't hold, we're looking likely coming back down to retest this area down here. So financials pulling back, closed below. Actually, it might have closed right on top of the 50-day moving average. But financials looking like maybe we're going to test this area of support. If that does not hold, odds are we're going to come back and down and test this potential area of price support down here, right around the 200-day moving average. Industrials, could be a big week for these guys. We'll see. Testing the top of this trend, or bottom of this underside of this trend line. We'll see if it holds the 50-day moving average. Kind of have a reverse head and shoulders pattern on this. See if this area holds and bounce. Could be worth keeping an eye on. Industrials. Consumer staples pull back a little bit, but in an uptrend. See if maybe we pull back and test the 50-day moving average as potential support. Healthcare pulling back. We've got a couple of names reporting this week. We'll see if we can pull back and test the 100 area, and the 50-day moving average can hold that as support. Consumer discretionary pull back. Obviously, if this coronavirus gets substantially worse, that would be tough for consumer discretionary, right? Who's going out to the casinos? Who's going out to movie theaters and restaurants and all that stuff? that could, play havoc on that space. We'll see if this trend line and the 50-day moving average hold the support. XOP, oil and exploration, coming back down, testing this multiple bottom. Not looking good, man. Like I said, this has been a very tough trade to try and find the bottom, and could be making new all-time lows in the very near future here. It's a tough space, but at some point, I think there will be a snapback trade in that space. Retail pulling back, testing the 50-day moving average. Broke through it a little bit. I'm not a big retail guy, but could be coming down and testing that 200-day moving average. So overall, I think the markets are sending us enough signals to be cautious, right? We need to be cautious. All right, real quick. I haven't been on, done the free videos in quite a while, but if you've followed me in the past, you know that there are a couple indicators that I really like, which are T2106 and T2107, T2108. And, it's an indicator that I've stressed before that when we get up into the 70 or above area, things are probably getting a bit overdone. It's probably time to lock in some profits, build that cash portfolio, and, and look for the opportunity when we get a pullback. And sure enough, I just wanted to point it out that, we came up and we hit the 70 mark, and what do? We're starting to pull back. Right, so it's a really good indicator that kind of gives you just an overall idea of when things might be getting a little overdone, and a time to lock in some profits. And I've been stressing that the last couple of weeks. And when we get below to 20 or lower, that's when you start to look at maybe it's time to start loading up some stuff, because things have gotten a little overdone to the downside. So T2107 got up into it didn't get up into the 70, but it did get up into an area where there has been consistent resistance, right? So that one's pulling back a little bit as well, and I think those are two indicators that you really want to keep an eye on. So T2106, a lot of complacency out there. This is the McClellan oscillator. Not a lot of fear. Things don't get really bad, or things don't get extreme until you get down to the minus 190 or minus 250, right? That's when you've got some extreme fear out there, and you could be looking at an opportunity to maybe get somewhat aggressive because things are really getting overdone. So keep that in mind. I absolutely do feel as though it's a time to be cautious. We'll see what happens with the Fed. If he comes out hawkish, that would be a pretty bad thing. I think the markets would react negatively. But I really do think the thing that will be in focus this week will be earnings. And even if they're great, and companies give good guides, I think that a lot of these companies, the good news is priced in. But we'll see. I could be wrong. Maybe the market just, continues to rip higher. That would actually make me very nervous, because I would begin to feel as though, we're heading towards that euphoric blow off top that leads to an eventual, reversal and potentially, a bear market. So that I would much rather see us pull back. Maybe a 10% correction, even a 15% correction. I don't care. And then, get a nice move higher again, right? And take out new all-time highs. I really don't want to see us just continue to rip higher, but the market doesn't care what I want to see. All right, so let's take a look at the list of stocks to watch for this week. Now, like I said, there's a lot of stocks that I think you should pay attention to that are reporting earnings. Any of the stocks on this list, make sure you check to see when they're reporting earnings before you go jumping in. But I think it could be a very interesting week ahead. So I'm going to start with this CASA. This had a nice pop on Friday with some really good volume. And hold on a second. These guys, I think these guys gave some preliminary guidance. Yeah, that's what it was. Uh, Revenue guidance for 2019, new CFO, and it was a pretty good guide. It came right up into an area of potential resistance, the $5 holla, right? So if it could take out the $5 holla with some conviction, there's a possibility we get a pop up into the 200-day up around $6, maybe even a complete gap fill up to around $6.50, right? So looking for a potential red to green, maybe a swing trade on this. Pull back to 426. $4 to 426 could be the zone, right? And then you put your stop below 350, and you're looking for that gap fill. But I think this one has some potential for a day trading opportunity. Could be taking out a long-term trend reversal too. So good looking setup there. Potential red to green follow through day there. CBLI. So I had a little pop. Now this is a little extended. It's up several days. But what I liked about it is it closed above the 200-day moving average, and it closed near the top of the day, right at price resistance. So breaking a long-term trend line. Add an area of price resistance. You take that out. Could we get a pop up into, 175 area? That's possible. 150 probably take some off. Looking for a potential red to green type move. It is overbought. Has had some nice volume days, but it's a little extended. Maybe on a pullback to a buck, right? This could be very interesting. That could be an area of price support. We could be breaking out of a box here. And maybe chopping around inside a new box, but worth keeping an eye on CBLI for a potential day trading opportunity. I wouldn't necessarily hold it for a swing. If it did, it would be very size appropriate, but worth keeping an eye on CBLI. APT had a huge run. These guys make the masks and the outfits to protect from virus. And I think this was SARS back here in 2014 when this thing went to $10. It's had a big move. Now keep in mind that even if these guys don't need capital, your stock has a big move like this. It wouldn't shock me if these guys all of a sudden said let's build the coffers and do a raise. So be careful with these things, but they could. As headlines continue to pour out, if the virus continues to get worse, you could see some movement in this thing. Intraday day trading opportunity, very high risk swing because it's already had such a big move. APT and Lake are both ones that can move off of this stuff. I think Lake got up into the 20s, right? It's at an area of potential resistance here at this $14. But that's another one that can have some pretty big moves. Could be intraday trades or higher risk swings because of the fact they've already had such big moves. OPGN, not a great looking long-term chart. I just kind of like the way this thing is flagging above the 20-day moving average. It looks to me as though you've got a pretty good area to trade against, 145. If you take out the trend line, it could be interesting. Maybe you get a gap fill up to 330 or so, 100 EMA. It's had a nice little run, pull back, had some decent volume. Worth potentially keeping an eye on this for a day trading opportunity. OPGN. AGRX. This one actually, nice breakout of a big area above $3. Stochastics curling up. Nice looking setup on the daily. Looking for potential follow through. Specialty generic. There's actually ENDP is another one that kind of broke out. This was a pretty big area that it's trying to take out. Now it's already had a 2-day run, so you might get a red to green, maybe a third day of the move. Looks like it's got a fairly small float, but this is a pretty big area. If it could take out $4 with some conviction, the next area of resistance really isn't until about 550 or so. So I kind of like the look at AGRX. Could be you have to look at the financials and stuff and see when they're reporting, but could be a swing or day trading. Could be a swing on a pullback to say $3, right? 283 bucks as potential support. Put your stop below 275 and maybe look for a pop up into the 375 area. $4. NURO, they report earnings. I think it's Monday before the open. If they just did a reverse split, so this has got, I think, less than 1 million shares in the float. If these guys report a good number, I think they need cash. I looked up. I think they do need cash. Likely would do a capital raise if this gets any kind of significant pop. But if they give, if they went cash flow positive by chance in this last quarter, this thing could get a nice pop. So I wouldn't chase it. If it gaps up, it has a tendency to pop and flop. Keep that in mind. But it is flirting with the 200-day moving average. It did close above it. If they report good earnings, give a good guide, this thing could be in play, being such a small float. So keep an eye on it. AIRI. So these guys reported not too long ago that they got the large, a 5-year contract, $60 million, largest contract, I think, in their history. Had a big pop, got up into resistance, pulling back, now testing the 50-day moving average. Stochastic starting to curl up. I like the look of this thing. I think on a pullback to 150, 175, 150, this could be interesting for a swing. Aerospace defense name, pull back. I don't think they needed cash. I think they don't have a lot of cash, but they do have positive cash flow. They might have to do a raise, to fill the order that they just received. But I like the look of this quite a bit. Pull back to 150, I think could be worth a stab as a potential swing or long-term hold play. So worth keep day trade opportunity if you get some volume, break this trend line, take out the $2 holla. AMSC. This caught my eye just because of the fact that it's holding on to the $7 holla. Looks like that has been acting as very strong support. I kind of took out this trend line a little bit here. It's right here at the 50-day moving average. Look, if it breaks below $7, it's probably going to 525, $5, right? But if it can take out the 200-day moving average, maybe we get a pop back up into the $10 area. So it's kind of trading in a box. It's at the bottom of that box. I think it's worth keeping an eye on. And like I said, you've got a pretty good thing to trade against $7, right? You know what your risk would be. CLMT, so oil and gas related name that has actually held up extremely well in a tough time for oil and gas. So it looks like they're doing a kind of a restructuring, selling off some divisions and stuff like that. Very interesting spot for a potential flat top breakout. It's breaking a long-term trend line. You've got the 50-day about to cross over the 200-day. Ideally, though, this could be more interesting on a pullback to, say, $4, right? Pull back to 4, maybe even 370, and that could be an opportunity for to start building a position. Could it come back down and test, this $3? Absolutely. If you like what you read about the turnaround, you need to do a little homework, but this could be a turnaround type play, long-term hold. Worth keeping an eye on it. I just like the way this thing has been acting in a very tough space. So, if the space recovers a bit, then maybe this one acts even stronger. So we'll see. USAS, silver names, silver and gold. I think there's some names out there, but silver names, there's some pretty good looks here. USAS, it's above the 200-day moving average. Stochastics look like they're starting to curl up. Looking for this to take out the $3 holla, maybe get a pop back up into the $3.84 range. But pretty decent looking setup on the daily. PAAS, same thing, right? Pulled back to the 50-day, had a nice run, pulled back to the 50-day, and starting to bounce now. The thing on PAAS, if we back out to the weekly time frame, it's a big spot. You know, $23.50, $24, a very big spot. You can see 2011 it was acting as support, 2012 resistance, 2016 resistance, and now here we are at resistance, and it's kind of consolidating and flagging up here at that resistance. So if you could take that out, could be an interesting flat top breakout on a long-term time frame for PAAS. So keep an eye on that. IC. So IC, I think got an upgrade with the $13 price target last week. I think there's been a couple of upgrades on this. It's had look. This thing has had a huge run. I mean, it was $1 back in October, November, right? And now it went up to $8.50. It's $7. So it's had a massive run, and it's not cheap. The market cap on it is not cheap compared to the enterprise value. But I like the daily. Potential day trade on a break over 7 with conviction, break over that trend line. Day trade, scalp opportunity. Pull back to the 50-day, 580, 550. Maybe that's support area. Where I really think it gets interesting, though, is about 450, 435. Pull back there. That could be an interesting support area, right? But I see potential day trading opportunity on a break over 7 with conviction. SXTC had some news. It's had several news events, some good volume spikes, but it can't seem to break over the $1 holla and stay there. Full disclosure, I had a bigger position when I was looking for a break over the $1 holla. It didn't follow through. I took some off. I kept a small position. Just because a lot of times once they start to get news flow, you get 4, 5, 6 headlines, and maybe one of these headlines gives it the pop and it holds. I mean, this is a recent IPO. It's had some decent pops, but it's a pop and flopper. Maybe this gets some follow through next week. We'll see. But could be a day trading opportunity. Short-term swing. Like I said, it tends to pop and flop. Doesn't really hold for very long. So, but they make like herbal pharmacy stuff in China. They could get a lift off of if this coronavirus news keeps spreading. This could get a lift off of that. So worth keeping an eye on it. EXK, another silver play. It looks to me like 2 is trying to hold his support, right? $1.95, $2. So maybe this is an area of potential entry for a swing, looking for a break back above 50 to 200-day moving average. Maybe take out the trend line, go up and test the $3 holla. Worth keeping an eye on EXK. ITI, communication equipment play. Been watching this one for a long time. It's got kind of a reverse head and shoulders pattern on the daily. And then real short term, you got a nice little flag pattern here. It looks to me like 480, 470, 485, $5. Looks like it's acting as support. Potential flat top breakout over 550 with conviction. Maybe it's waiting on earnings. I don't know, but I like the look of ITI quite a bit. It trades pretty thin, but an entry close, it's close to $5 could be interesting for me for a swing, maybe even a long-term hold consideration. MLCO, casinos getting whacked. Reports coming out of China that they may shut down Macau until this threat is over with the coronavirus, and I think that could present a tremendous opportunity for Melco. I've traded it many times in the past. I'm completely out of it now, and I would like to jump back in. If this thing gets into the teens, 1875 or so, I could start to dip. But reality is this: if this gets significantly worse, and the casinos are shut down and shut down for a while, it could be a short-term hit to these guys, and you could see it come back to $13, right? Or not, $16, right? Where there's some potential price support. But if we break 16, we could come down and test 1250. Who knows? Maybe it goes to single digits. We would be breaking a long-term trend line, and that would be problematic. So as it pulls back to the teens, I would look to start building a position, knowing full well that the longer this virus continues to play out, and if it's negative news, that it could go significantly lower. But I would be looking to buy and hold for the long term, because at some point I do think they come back. All right, MLCO. All right, so what else we got? Pfe Pfizer. Look, Pfizer's really hasn't done a whole lot in a while, and they report earnings this week. If this thing pulls back to $34 or so, I could be inclined to dip my toe. It could be a safe place to park some cash. Even if as the markets maybe if the markets are weak, I think Pfizer is a good long-term hold type play. I don't know. I have to see how it acts off of earnings, but if it were to pull back to the 200-day or to this trend line in this potential price support area, I probably would look to dip for a long-term hold investment type play. TCON, biotech name. Look, not a great looking daily or a great looking long-term chart. Got a little bit of a bounce. It's coming up into the 200-day moving average. It's above the 50-day. Potential flat top breakout here. Just a day trading opportunity is all I was looking at. There is a gap to fill. Looks like they just did a reverse split. So it's tiny float. Just potential day trading opportunity on that one. That's it. RC, so I talked about the oil and gas. This had a very clearly defined bottom. Broke it on Friday. We're out of the lower Bollinger Band. This could go significantly lower. I mean, it might crack 3. Who knows? But at some point, I think we could have a nice snapback play in RRC. There are several names within the oil and gas space that look like this, that broke clearly defined areas of potential support. And maybe it gets a lot worse. I don't know. But at some point, there could be snapback trade opportunities, so worth having it on the radar. OSS, these guys gave guidance, revenue up 57%. Got a big pop off of that. Now it's consolidating a little bit, pulling back on lower volume, looking for it to set up, maybe pull back to 245, 250, 235, somewhere in that area, to an area of price support. Right, it's breaking a long-term trend line. It has had a tendency to pop and flop, right? So see if this puts in a nice consolidation pullback, and maybe then we take out the $3 hollow with some conviction. Could be a short-term trading opportunity there. RNet, it's another oil and gas that had a very clearly defined bottom and broke through it. Now completely out of the lower Bollinger Band. Potential snapback bounce play, just a short-term trading opportunity there. And the last one is IntelliStat. So this has gotten pounded pretty good off of their Spectrum sale. Really got, this was $25, $26 a share. Got pounded. Pulled back. Had a nice little couple of rallies. And now we're back down to the potential bottom again. Now, if we break below 590, we could be heading to $5. I don't know. But we're piercing the lower Bollinger Band. I'm thinking we could get a short-term bounce in IntelliStat. Worth keeping an eye on for just a short-term trading opportunity. And that is it. That is my full list of stocks to watch. Look, there are going to be, I'm sure, a lot of things going on with the coronavirus and earnings. There can be a lot of movers. So let's see how it all plays out, right? Let's see how it all plays out. Don't chase. Have a plan. Know your risk reward. If you like the video, please give it a like or give it a retweet or share it with your friends. I would appreciate that. I'd like to see that some people are benefiting from this, and that way I'll keep doing them. And if I'm not getting that sense, then what's the point in doing them, right? All right. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and good luck trading next week. I'll see you all sometime soon.